AI is like the word on everyone's lips these days.
Yeah, it's everywhere you look.
But put them together, AI and podcast. OMG, AI.
Catchy, right?
Definitely attention grabbing.
Yeah, and it tells you something about how people see AI, you know?
Definitely a sense of buckle up.
A little bit of awe, a little bit of, oh my God, what's next?
Exactly. Makes you wonder if we're ready for a podcast like OMG AI.
Maybe, maybe not. Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. We always try to go deep on topics that you're interested in, and today we're tackling AI and copyright, and specifically the implications for businesses. So much going on in this area, so much to think about. Luckily, we've got some really insightful reports from the U.S. Copyright Office to dig into, and to help us really make sense of all of this. We've got an expert with us today.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just to give everybody a little bit of a roadmap before we jump in, we're going to be focusing on two reports today. One specifically on digital replicas and AI, and the other one's looking at AI-generated output that imitates a person's identity or style. And then we've also got an article from Myra Roldan, CEO of Undesto AI. And Undesto AI helps businesses navigate the really complex world of AI adoption and integration. So her insights are going to be super valuable.
Yeah, her perspective is really helpful in sort of connecting the dots between these reports and what they actually mean for companies on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I think maybe the best place to start is with this concept of a digital replica, because it's sort of at the heart of a lot of the legal and ethical issues that are being raised. So maybe before we even get into like the laws and the regulations, can you just give us a clear definition of what a digital replica is? I know we hear the term deepfake thrown around a lot. Is that the same thing?
Yeah, so deepfake is definitely a term that's become pretty common, but essentially a digital replica is any video image or audio recording that's digitally created or manipulated to realistically depict a person. And yeah, deepfakes are a type of digital replica. They use AI to create these incredibly realistic but fabricated images or videos.
Got it. So it's not just like those funny face swap apps anymore. We're talking about something much more sophisticated and potentially much more problematic.
Right, exactly. And the report highlights some really concerning statistics. I mean, one that really jumped out at me was that 98% of deepfakes online are non-consensual explicit content, and 99% of those feature women.
Wow, that's pretty disturbing.
Yeah.
And it's not just about explicit content either, right? I mean, the report talks about financial fraud using AI-generated voices.
Absolutely. There's a case mentioned in the report where a finance worker was tricked into transferring $25 million because of an AI-generated voice that sounded exactly like a company executive. So that really highlights the potential for harm. I mean, that's a huge financial loss.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you add in the potential for misinformation during elections, and it's really a whole new world of challenges.
Yeah, definitely. The report does acknowledge that there are positive applications for digital replicas, things like creating accessibility tools or preserving the voices of loved ones, which is really interesting. But I think the potential for misuse is what's really driving the need for some clear legal guidelines.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So speaking of legal guidelines, how does current U.S. copyright law handle these digital replicas? Does it offer any protection?
Well, that's where things get a little tricky. Currently, copyright law protects original works of authorship like books or songs, but it doesn't specifically protect a person's identity or likeness.
So wait a minute. So someone could create a digital replica of my voice or my face, and as long as they didn't use an existing copyrighted photo or recording of me to do it, they wouldn't be breaking the law.
That's essentially the gap that the report is trying to address, and it's something that Myra Roldan really emphasizes in her article as well.
Wow, that's unsettling.
So
So what about other legal frameworks? Are there any other laws that might offer some protection? The report mentions things like the right of publicity, the Lanham Act, and the FTC Act.
Yeah.
Do any of those help?
they offer some protection, but they have limitations. For example, the right of publicity, which varies from state to state, often only covers commercial uses of a person's likeness. So if someone creates a deepfake of you for a harmful prank or to spread misinformation online, but they're not profiting from it, it might not be covered.
So just to be clear, someone could use my likeness to spread lies about me or to harass me online, and I might not have any legal recourse.
That's a very real possibility, and it's one of the reasons why the Copyright Office is recommending some pretty significant changes to the law.
Okay, so let's get into that. What is the Copyright Office actually proposing? What do they recommend?
They're recommending a new federal right that would protect individuals from the knowing distribution of unauthorized digital replicas.
Hold on. Knowing distribution. What does that mean exactly? It seems like there's some nuance there.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just about accidentally sharing a deepfake. It implies intent. The idea is to prevent situations where someone intentionally creates and spreads a harmful replica, knowing that it's unauthorized and potentially damaging.
Got it. So this protection would cover both commercial and non-commercial uses, right?
Yeah.
So even those malicious pranks would be addressed.
Exactly. The goal is to provide comprehensive protection for individuals, regardless of whether someone is trying to profit from the use of their likeness or not.
Now, the report also gets into this concept of postmortem rights, which sounds really complicated. Can you break that down for us?
Sure, so postmortem rights refer to the control over a person's digital replica after they die. It's basically asking the question, should heirs have the right to control how someone's likeness is used digitally after they're gone? It's a pretty complex issue.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, it seems reasonable for heirs to have some say, especially if there's a financial aspect involved. Like if a company wants to use a deceased celebrity's likeness in a movie, for example. But then where do you draw the line?
Exactly. It's about balancing competing interests. The report suggests a limited postmortem term, possibly tied to continued commercial exploitation, as a way to find that balance.
So, for instance, if a company wanted to use a deceased actor's digital replica for a new film, the heirs might have control over that use for a certain period of time.
That's the general idea. It's still very much in the discussion phase, and there's a lot to be worked out, but it's definitely a conversation that's gaining momentum.
This is all so fascinating and a bit overwhelming, to be honest.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot to unpack, but the more we understand these legal intricacies, the better equipped we are to navigate this new era of AI.
I totally agree. Okay, so we've covered the potential harms of digital replicas and the legal struggles surrounding them. What about AI that can create art in the style of a famous artist? Does the artist have any rights in that situation?
That's where the second report comes in, and it really gets into some uncharted territory. Copyright law, as it stands, generally doesn't protect artistic style itself, only the expression within a specific work. So just creating something that looks like a famous artist's style might not be copyright infringement.
Wait, so someone could theoretically create a piece of art that looks exactly like a Picasso, and as long as they didn't directly copy a specific Picasso painting, it wouldn't be illegal.
Well, it's complicated. But essentially, yes, as long as they didn't use a copyrighted Picasso work to create their piece, it might not be considered infringement.
So the focus is on how the AI was trained, not just on the final output. That seems like a really tricky distinction to make.
It is, and this is where Myra Roldan's insights are particularly relevant for businesses, because she's not just talking about the theory, she's bridging the gap between these legal concepts and what they mean for companies in the real world.
Yeah, her article really resonated with me because it addresses the practicalities of using AI in a business context. It's one thing to understand the law, but it's another thing entirely to actually apply it to real-world scenarios.
Exactly. Myra is all about providing tangible solutions for businesses that are grappling with these new challenges. And I think her expertise is going to be really helpful as we dive deeper into these reports.
Okay, well, let's do that. Let's move on to the next part of our deep dive and explore some of those solutions.
Myra Roldan's company, Undesto AI, is really on the cutting edge of this whole AI and business thing. They're not just focused on the legal side of things, but also on the ethical considerations, which is so important these days.
It's like she's a translator, right? Taking all this dense legal jargon and turning it into something that businesses can actually understand and act on. And in her article, she really stresses the need for companies to be proactive, not reactive, when it comes to AI and copyright.
Absolutely. It's not enough to just wait for the law to catch up. Businesses need to be taking steps now to mitigate risks and make sure they're using AI in a responsible way.
So what are some of those steps? What can companies do to be more proactive in this area?
Well, one of the key things that Myra emphasizes is the importance of developing clear AI usage policies.
Okay, AI usage policies. What exactly does that entail?
Basically, it's a document that outlines how the company plans to use AI in a way that's both ethical and legal. It covers things like data privacy, copyright compliance, and the potential for bias in AI algorithms.
It's about setting some ground rules and making sure everyone in the company is on the same page.
Exactly. It's about establishing clear guidelines for different AI applications. So, for example, if a company is using AI for content creation, the policy should address the issue of plagiarism and make sure that the AI isn't generating content that infringes on someone else's copyright.
Right, that makes sense. And what about if they're using AI to create digital replicas for marketing purposes?
In that case, the policy would need to address informed consent and make sure that the company has obtained permission from the individuals whose likenesses are being used.
So it's really about anticipating potential problems and putting safeguards in place.
Exactly. It's about being proactive rather than reactive.
And Myra also stresses the importance of actually communicating these policies to employees, right? Not just creating them and then sticking them in a drawer somewhere.
Absolutely. It's about providing training and making sure that everyone understands the company's stance on AI ethics.
It sounds like a pretty big cultural shift for a lot of companies.
It can be, but it's essential if companies want to use AI responsibly and avoid potential legal pitfalls.
Now, in her article, Myra also talks about the need for businesses to educate themselves on the complexities of copyright law, especially when it comes to digital replicas. I imagine that can be a pretty daunting task for a lot of companies.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming. But that's where companies like Undesto AI come in. They offer consulting services to help businesses understand the legal landscape and develop strategies for compliance.
So they're kind of like a guide for companies navigating this uncharted territory.
Yeah, exactly. They provide expertise on things like licensing agreements, risk assessments, and best practices for using AI in a way that respects copyright law.
That's great. So there is help available for companies that need it.
Absolutely. There are resources out there to help companies navigate these complex issues.
One thing I found particularly interesting in Myra's article was her emphasis on the importance of informed consent, especially when it comes to digital replicas.
Yeah, informed consent is crucial. It basically means that individuals are fully aware of how their likeness or voice is being used, and they've given explicit permission for that use.
It seems especially important in the context of deepfakes, where someone's image or voice could be manipulated without their knowledge or consent.
Absolutely. Imagine finding out that your face is being used in a deepfake video to promote a product you don't even like, or worse, to spread false information about you.
That's a scary thought. So informed consent is about protecting individuals from potential harm, but it's also about building trust between businesses and the public.
Exactly. It's about being transparent and upfront about how AI is being used.
And Myra acknowledges that it can be tricky to obtain informed consent in the age of AI. People are constantly being asked for their data, and they might not always understand the implications of giving consent for AI applications.
That's true. So she suggests finding ways to explain these concepts in plain language, avoiding technical jargon or legalese.
It's about making sure that people understand what they're agreeing to.
Exactly. And that's something that companies need to be really mindful of.
Now, Myra also talks about the challenges businesses face when it comes to using AI in a way that respects artistic style.
Right. That's a whole other can of worms, as we discussed earlier.
So what are some of the best practices for businesses that want to use AI to create art or music in the style of a particular artist?
Well, the key thing is to avoid using copyrighted works to train the AI. If the AI is trained on a collection of copyrighted paintings or songs, for example, that could potentially lead to an infringement claim.
So it's back to that issue of how the AI was trained.
Exactly. The output of the AI might not be infringing in itself, but if the AI was trained on copyrighted material, that could be a problem.
So what's the alternative?
Hmm.
How could businesses use AI to create art or music in a particular style without infringing on copyright?
Well, one option is to use public domain works to train the AI. Or they could create their own data set of original works that are specifically designed for training the AI.
So there are ways to do it legally and ethically.
Absolutely. It just requires some careful planning and consideration.
Now, Myra also mentions that Undesto AI provides training programs for employees on the ethical and legal considerations of AI. What kinds of topics are covered in these programs?
They cover a wide range of issues, from the basics of copyright law to identifying potential biases in AI algorithms to navigating the complexities of informed consent.
So it's really about giving employees the tools they need to use AI responsibly.
Exactly. It's about making ethical AI use a company-wide priority.
That's great. And it's not all doom and gloom, right? I mean, Myra also talks about the potential benefits of using AI in a business context.
Of course, AI has the potential to revolutionize many industries. It can help businesses streamline processes, improve efficiency, and even open up new creative possibilities.
So it's not just about avoiding risks, it's also about embracing the opportunities.
Exactly. AI can be a powerful tool for growth and innovation if it's used responsibly.
And that's really the key message here, isn't it? With great power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely. We need to approach AI with a sense of both excitement and caution. We need to be aware of the potential risks, but also open to the possibilities.
Okay, so we've talked about the legal challenges, the ethical considerations, and the practical solutions. Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'd love to get your take on something Myra mentions in her article, the need for businesses to ask themselves some tough questions about how they're using AI. What are some of those questions?
Well, I think the most important question is, why are we using AI in the first place? What problem are we trying to solve?
Right. It's about making sure that there's a clear purpose behind the use of AI.
Exactly. And then businesses need to ask themselves, what are the potential benefits of using AI in this context, but also what are the potential risks?
It's about weighing the pros and cons.
Exactly. And it's also important to consider the ethical implications. How does our use of AI align with our company values? Are we being transparent with our customers and employees about how we're using AI?
Those are all great questions, and it sounds like they go beyond just the legal consideration.
They do. It's about taking a holistic view of AI and thinking about its impact on all stakeholders.
So it's not just about the bottom line.
Yeah.
It's about doing what's right.
Absolutely.
This has been a really enlightening conversation, and I feel like I have a much better grasp on the issues now. But before we wrap up, I have one more question for you. What's the one key takeaway that our listeners should walk away with from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway, honestly, is that AI is here to stay and it's changing the way we work, interact with everything, but we have to approach it carefully, both from a legal standpoint and an ethical one.
It's not about being afraid of it, though,
Right.
right? It's not like trying to stop progress. It's about using this amazing tool responsibly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where Myra Roldan's advice is so on point. She's not just like pointing fingers, she's giving real solutions. She's helping businesses take charge of their own AI journey.
That idea from her article that really stuck with me was AI as a tool. Like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It all comes down to us.
It's a great analogy. We wouldn't just pick up a hammer and start swinging without knowing how to use it, right? Same goes for AI. We need to understand what it can do, what it can't do, what might happen before we just let it loose.
Exactly. And that means constantly learning and adapting. The laws are changing all the time, and new ethical dilemmas pop up left and right.
Right.
It's never over.
You got it. It's a constant process. Education, thinking about it, adjusting. And that's where stuff like Myra's article, her company, Undesto AI, even deep dives like this come in. They help us make sense of it all and make smart choices.
So for our listeners who are probably like, whoa, information overload, what does this actually mean for them? How can they use this in their own jobs, their own industries?
First step is just knowing what's up. Take some time, learn about how AI could change your field, read stuff, go to webinars, talk to people who know their stuff. The more you know, the better you'll be when things start changing fast.
Love it. Knowledge is power, as they say, especially now with everything moving so fast.
And don't be shy about asking for help. Reach out to people like Myra and her team at Undesto AI. They're there for a reason. No shame in getting some guidance, especially with something as complicated as AI.
Myra and her team are seriously dedicated to this. You can tell. They want businesses to get AI right. Their website's amazing, tons of info. We'll put a link in the show notes for sure.
It's a goldmine. And if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, don't worry. You're not alone. We're all figuring this out together.
The more we talk, share what we know, learn from each other, the better we'll handle this whole new AI world.
That's a great point to wrap up on, I think. Thanks so much for being here. It's been awesome breaking down these big issues with you.
The pleasure was all mine. Always love a good brain-stretching conversation.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us. We hope this deep dive gave you some food for thought and maybe some new questions to ponder. Keep exploring, keep learning, and remember, the future of AI, it's in our hands. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.